Evan Carter had always been known as the quiet mechanic who kept to himself, tucked away in a fading corner of a small town. Outside Dallas, his garage smelled of oil, burnt metal, and old dreams he'd once believed would come true. Business had slowed so badly that he sometimes went an entire day without hearing the creak of the garage door opening. Bills piled up like a silent threat on his dusty counter, and every night he stayed late fixing whatever few cars still came in just to earn enough for the next day's survival. Yet he kept working, hoping something would change. The air was thick with the sound of rain tapping against the metal roof the night Lily walked into his life. It was a night Evan almost closed early, but something made him stay a little longer. A worried woman stepped into the dimly lit garage, holding a soaked umbrella in one hand and guiding a teenage girl in a wheelchair with the other. The girl was quiet, her eyes lowered, her body stiff, as if she didn't want to be seen. Evan wiped his hands and stepped forward, unsure what problem he'd be asked to fix. The mother explained softly that her daughter Lily had lost both legs in a devastating accident 2 years earlier. They had gone through countless prosthetics, but nothing worked. Everything was heavy, painful, and unstable. The girl's current prosthetic legs sat beside her, scratched, cracked at the joints, and clearly poorly made. Evan gently lifted one, turning it in his hands, his eyes narrowing not in judgment but in concern. He could see sharp edges, misaligned joints, and materials so cheap they shouldn't have been used on any child. Lily watched him silently, her fingers curled into the arms of her wheelchair. She seemed embarrassed, showing him the damaged prosthetics, as if their poor quality reflected something about her. Evan knelt beside her, speaking softly, telling her it wasn't her fault and that she deserved better. Her mother's voice trembled as she said they had run out of money. They couldn't afford a specialist, and they only hoped someone might repair the broken parts enough for Lily to walk short distances again. Evan felt something shift inside him. He'd seen hardship before, but something about this girl's tired but hopeful eyes struck him deeply. He promised he would try to help, though he didn't know how much it would cost him in time, materials, and already limited sleep. Lily looked up at him with a small smile that warmed the cold, grease-stained corners of his garage. That smile was all it took for Evan to decide he would not just fix the legs. He would build something better, something worthy of her courage. He didn't tell them yet, but he already knew this wouldn't be a simple repair. After they left, Evan locked the door, rolled the prosthetics under bright lights, and studied every inch. Anger built in his chest, not at the family, but at whoever had sold them such carelessly made equipment. He spent hours sketching designs on old car manuals, drawing new limb structures with lighter, stronger materials. He imagined joints that moved smoothly, support frames that absorbed impact, and soft padding that wouldn't burn her skin. He dug through storage, pulling out leftover carbon fiber sheets he had once bought for a custom motorcycle project he never finished. The hours stretched deep into the night, but Evan barely noticed. He cut, welded, sanded, adjusted, and reshaped every component with the same care a jeweler uses on a precious stone. His hands trembled from exhaustion, yet he refused to stop. By sunrise, he had a rough frame ready, lighter than anything Lily had ever used. But it wasn't perfect, not yet. He worked all morning and all afternoon, forgetting to eat, focusing only on the little girl who had trusted him with something more important than any car he'd ever fixed. On the second night, Evan tested the mechanisms repeatedly, tightening screws, adjusting angles, until he felt the movement was as natural as he could make it. He imagined Lily standing, taking her first step without pain. That thought pushed him forward. When his tools finally fell silent, the garage was filled with the faint glow of his workbench light, shining on 2 sleek, handcrafted prosthetic legs that looked far beyond what a struggling mechanic should have been able to make. But Evan didn't feel proud. He felt responsible. He wanted them to be perfect. By the third night, Evan made final refinements, smoothing rough edges, adding soft inner layers, checking weight, distribution, and ensuring the legs wouldn't strain Lily's small frame. He stayed awake until his eyes blurred, and even then he pushed himself to test everything one last time. When he finally stepped back, he realized he had created not just prosthetics, but a gift of dignity and confidence for a girl who had lost too much too soon. Exhausted but hopeful, he placed the finished pair carefully on his workbench, praying they would change her life. And as he leaned against the wall, watching the early morning light spill into the garage, he didn't know that these handmade legs, built with kindness he could barely afford to give, would carry Lily far beyond anything he ever imagined. He certainly didn't know that the next day would bring a private jet, life-changing opportunities, and a future he had never dared to dream. All he knew was that he had done the right thing, and for the first time in months he felt a quiet sense of purpose settle into his tired heart. The morning Lily returned, the garage was filled with a soft warmth that didn't usually exist in Evan's world. He had barely slept, pacing the floor, checking the legs again, and again, even though he knew they were ready. When he finally heard a car pull up, his heart sank into his chest. Lily and her mother stepped inside, their expressions full of quiet hope. Evan carefully brought the new prosthetics forward, his hands steady despite the pressure he felt inside. Lily stared at them with awe, touching the smooth surface as if it was something magical rather than mechanical. Evan knelt beside her wheelchair and gently helped her adjust the supportive straps around her thighs. She didn't say much, but the way she watched him showed she trusted him completely. Her mother stood nearby, wringing her hands, afraid of disappointment, yet desperate for a miracle. When Evan lifted Lily under the arms and guided her upward, he expected hesitation, maybe fear. Instead, Lily tightened her grip on his arms, holding her breath as her weight shifted onto the new legs. For a long second, the entire garage felt silent, waiting for her reaction. Then Lily's eyes widened. There was no flinch of pain, no awkward sway, only surprise. Evan asked softly if she was okay, and she nodded with a trembling smile. Slowly, he let go, still hovering close just in case. Lily tried a single step. The foot touched the ground naturally, the joint bending smoothly, supporting her. Perfectly, she gasped. Her mother covered her mouth, already crying. Evan felt a burning behind his eyes, overwhelmed by the simple miracle unfolding right in front of him. Lily took another step, then another, each more confident than the last. Her movement grew steadier, her posture straighter, as if the years of pain and fear had suddenly lifted from her shoulders. She began walking across the garage floor, turning back after every few steps to see if Evan was still watching. He was, his expression full of disbelief and pride. Lily made a slow half-circle, moving toward the workbench filled with tools, then back toward her mother. This time, when she reached her, she wrapped her arms around her mother's waist, standing on her own legs for the first time in months. Her mother sobbed, kneeling to embrace her tightly. She whispered over and over that she couldn't believe it, that she had never imagined this moment would come again. Lily held on to her, crying too, but smiling through the tears. Evan stood back, giving them the moment they deserved, though his heart hammered with emotion. He had seen many victories in his life, but none compared to this. He didn't need praise. Watching Lily walk, truly walk, was more rewarding than any paycheck he could have earned. When Lily finally let go and returned to him, she threw her arms around his neck. He froze for a second, startled, then hugged her gently. She told him he was her hero, that no one had ever cared enough to build something just for her. Evan didn't know what to say, his throat tight. He only told her that she was stronger than she knew, that she just needed legs worthy of her bravery. Her mother stepped forward, Thanking him with a sincerity that made his chest tighten, she tried to insist on paying him something, anything, but Evan refused. After they left, Evan cleaned the garage with a strange mix of exhaustion and peace. His hands still shook slightly from everything he had felt. Work had been slow, money short, his future uncertain, but for the first time in years, he felt like he had done something meaningful. He didn't realize that Lily's mother was quietly making plans that would soon change his life. She had filmed Lily walking every step, and once home, she sent the video to her father, along with a message explaining everything Evan had done. Her father wasn't just wealthy. He was one of the most influential figures in the aviation industry, known for supporting innovation and humanitarian causes. The moment he saw the video, he watched it twice, then a third time. He saw more than a mechanic. He saw a man with rare talent and a heart to match. Within minutes, he called his daughter, demanding the mechanic's name, his location, and everything she knew about him. She explained Evan's situation, his struggling business, his kindness, and the extraordinary craftsmanship behind the legs. Lily's grandfather knew immediately that he needed to meet the man who had restored his granddaughter's independence. He didn't send a car. He didn't call ahead. Instead, he contacted his pilot and prepared one of his private jets. His daughter questioned the sudden urgency, but he simply said that people like Evan were too rare and too valuable to ignore. He wanted to thank him personally, offer him something better than a struggling garage and nights spent worrying about bills. Meanwhile, Evan had no idea what was coming. He didn't know about the video, the message, or the powerful man who now wanted to find him. After finishing his work for the day, he sat alone at his desk, staring at the pile of unpaid invoices he still didn't know how to handle. The joy from Lily's success softened his worries, but reality still hung over him like a shadow. He wondered how long he could keep the garage open, how many months he had left before the bank forced him out. All he could do was keep working and hope. As the night settled in, he thought again about Lily's smile, steady, confident, alive. That memory was enough to quiet the fear gnawing at him. He didn't know that across the city, a flight plan had already been filed, engines warmed, and a jet prepared to lift off at sunrise. He didn't know that tomorrow wouldn't be another quiet, lonely day in his small Dallas garage. His life was about to change forever, all because he had chosen kindness when he had almost nothing left to give. The next morning began like any other, quiet, slow, and heavy with the weight of uncertainty. Evan unlocked his garage, the metal door rattling as it lifted, revealing another day of hard work and little income. He brewed a cheap cup of coffee on his old portable heater and sat on a stool, staring at the scattered tools and the same unpaid bills that had haunted him for months. The world outside seemed calm, almost too calm, but Evan had no idea that the silence was about to be shattered by something extraordinary, something that would rewrite the direction of his life. A low rumble grew in the distance, deeper and louder than any truck or motorcycle he knew. He stepped outside, squinting into the sunlight, as a shadow swept over him. A private jet, sleek, gleaming and unmistakably expensive, descended slowly toward the empty field beside his garage. Evan froze, unable to process what he was seeing. Dust swirled around him as the jet touched down smoothly, its engines humming like some futuristic machine. For a moment, he wondered if he was dreaming or if this was some mistake, because nothing about his life prepared him for this. The jet's door opened, and two men in sharp suits descended the steps. They walked with purpose, scanning the area. Before approaching the mechanic's garage, Evan's heart pounded as they stopped in front of him and asked, "Are you Evan Carter?" He swallowed hard and nodded. The men exchanged a brief glance, then stepped aside. Evan's breath caught when he saw a small figure at the top of the jet stairs. Lily, She wasn't in a wheelchair, she wasn't being held. She was standing confidently on the legs he had built. Lily began walking toward him, her steps steady and light. Then, in a burst of joy, she broke into a small run, her laughter echoing across the field. Evan felt his chest tighten with emotion. He bent down instinctively as she reached him, throwing her arms around him in the happiest hug he had ever received. Behind her, her mother stepped out of the jet, tears in her eyes, but smiling with pride. And beside her was an older man, distinguished, calm, and unmistakably powerful, Lily's grandfather. The older man extended his hand firmly, introducing himself as Richard Hale, founder of Hale Aviation and one of the most influential billionaires in the country. Evan shook his hand cautiously, unsure what to say. Richard thanked him for giving Lily her life back, speaking with a sincerity that carried weight. He explained that no doctor or specialist had been able to build something that allowed Lily to walk this smoothly. Yet a struggling mechanic from Dallas had accomplished what teams of experts couldn't. Richard described Evan's work as genius, innovation born from compassion rather than profit. Evan tried to protest, insisting he was just a mechanic doing the best he could, but Richard stopped him gently, saying that humility didn't change the truth. He told Evan that people like him were rare, people who used their skills selflessly, who saw a child in need and gave more than they had. Richard then revealed why he had come. He wanted to offer Evan a life-changing opportunity. He proposed building a fully equipped workshop for him, hiring specialists to work under him, and creating a nationwide program to provide custom prosthetics to children who couldn't afford them. The words sounded unreal. Evan blinked, trying to absorb everything. Lily's mother added that they wanted him to lead the project, not as a mechanic, but as head engineer and designer. They had already seen the potential in him, not just in the prosthetic legs, but in the dedication behind them. Evan's throat tightened as he struggled to respond. He had spent years barely surviving, wondering if he even mattered. Now, suddenly, his work was being recognized by people who had the power to change lives on a massive scale. Evan looked at Lily, who stood proudly beside him. She told him she wanted him to help other kids walk the way he helped her. Her voice was full of hope. And he realized this wasn't just about him. It was about every child who had been told they couldn't walk again because their families couldn't afford proper care. It was about giving back dignity, confidence, and freedom, the same way he had unknowingly given it to Lily. He sighed, overwhelmed but deeply moved. After a long pause, Evan nodded and accepted the offer, tears filling his eyes. Richard smiled, placing a supportive hand on his shoulder. Plans were already in motion, he said. Engineers, architects, and medical consultants had been contacted. A space near the aviation plant had been prepared. All that remained was Evan's decision, and now he had given it. Lily clapped excitedly and hugged him again, thanking him for saying yes. Evan finally let the moment sink in. He wasn't just a struggling mechanic anymore. He was stepping into a future where his skill could help thousands, where his work truly mattered, where his compassion had opened doors he never imagined. As they boarded the jet to take Evan to see the facility, he turned one last time to look at his small, worn-down garage. It had been his world, full of sweat, frustration, and dreams that always felt out of reach. But it was also where the miracle began, where Lily walked for the first time, where purpose found him. He whispered a silent goodbye before following the others. Toward the jet, the engines roared to life, lifting them into the sky as Evan watched the only life he had ever known grow smaller beneath him, replaced by something brighter. He didn't know what challenges awaited him or how big the journey ahead would be, but as Lily sat beside him, swinging her legs easily, smiling with the happiness he had helped create, Evan felt something he hadn't felt in years, hope. And with that hope he stepped boldly into the future, ready to change the world one child at a time. beginning with the miracle he had already set in motion.